Honesty, acceptance, loyalty, and trust. HALT. These are themes I keep visiting both with my podcast guests and with hosts on the platforms I've been invited on, because they appear to me as the foundational guideposts that cultivate the vibration of all other values and virtues that we individually identify with and embody throughout our various seasons. Frequencies that evolve and transform through the lived experiences that shape our perceptions and perspectives on this journey called life. This episode is the first in a series of solo casts where I'm going to go deeper into each pillar, my experience with them, and how learning how to halt is changing how I observe what's being shown to me, choose to engage with information once I've had a chance to digest it, and how it's up-leveling the outcomes I'm experiencing from this newfound state of neutrality where I am no longer attempting to protect or defend myself from anyone or anything but myself. I have come to not only believe, but know that true liberation cannot exist outside of my capacity to halt. I'm here to learn out loud, grow through seasons, and hopefully inspire you to find the courage to do the same. So before we get started, if you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and review the Grand Rising Experience wherever you're listening. You can also ask me questions about anything you hear in these episodes and interact with fellow listeners in the comment section at grandrisingexperience.substack.com. Your engagement with my content truly helps to ensure that these valuable stories find those who need to hear them. And if you want to follow my evolution and journey as I continue to grow into my mission and calling, you can subscribe at NicoleConnor.com to learn more about the portal mentorship and upcoming summits that you'll be able to attend both virtually or in person. Now, I don't usually do this, but I want to preface the rest of this episode by saying that the Grand Rising Experience podcast is created for adults. And my intention is to be co-creating this conversation specifically with adults, although I am deeply aware that we see and experience the world through the lens of our childhood. And if you have experienced childhood trauma and are still healing through those wounds, you may find some of my language a bit triggering. My true audience has already spent years on their own inner work and cultivated the maturity, self-regulation, and tools to enter into these more blunt conversations, and that's who I'm ultimately speaking to. But if for whatever reason you feel like you might not be ready, this might be an episode you want to come back to in the future. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. Let's dive in. Before you rise, you must halt. This was a phrase that came to me very suddenly in February of 2023 as I was asking for clarity on how to move forward. I found myself contemplating and looking for guidance around articulating and bringing forward this mission that I want to live into. And this phrase, when it came, it felt loud and demanding, and it came in such a way that I could not ignore its call. So I did what I do best, and instinctively I looked up the definition of halt, and this is what I found. Halt, in its verb form, means to bring or come to an abrupt stop. As a noun, it is a suspension of movement or activity, typically a temporary one. So now I was curious. I'm like, okay, universe, you have my attention. So as I sat and contemplated this odd yet divinely timed phrase, I kept ruminating on how and why we, the collective, perpetuate self-harming cycles both internally and externally. And I mean, this is where my brain has lived for at least the last 6 years, but I've really been sinking and settling into this a lot more in 2023. When I observe the mainstream narratives being conjured, and by mainstream, I mean all narratives constructed by external factors, I see nothing but lies built on a foundation of doubt, denial, and betrayal, with a few half-truths sprinkled in to prevent a complete toppling of ideological towers. I see salvation and peace being sought in the absence of forgiveness, and bastardized assumptions of righteousness that appear to reinforce and deepen division based on which looping perception, perspective, and projections are attached to how you feel seen, heard, secure, validated, and loved. Ultimately, it reveals the hard truth of as within, so without, how internal agreements create external contracts, how we can only be deceived to the degree in which we lie to ourselves, and why I feel global constructs can only survive on a foundation that requires we be traumatized by these lies beyond the womb. This has all led me to really start observing how the energetics of the war within become the war with all. And we're talking spiritual, psychological, emotional, physical, environmental, and how they become this looping and self-fulfilling prophecy of the unconscious mind due to the epigenetics that dictate cultural engineering that keep us sick, stuck, stagnant, and ultimately in separation. Observations that highlight the requirement for a level of individual healing that we can no longer outsource, bypass, or ignore. And I can see a collective consciousness forming around this awareness, which is so beautiful because that which we observe changes. But there is work required of each of us to ensure that these observed changes occur for our benefit and not in our detriment. As we bear witness to aspects of the collective consciousness that has been hidden in the shadows, the fragments of self that make up the whole are being shaken and stirred in the process, which is just a natural consequence of cause and effect. This is creating a sifting process that appears to be organically separating the imitators from the initiators, the charged from the neutralized, the fanatics from the individuated, and the inflamed from the peaceful. And this is where that polarizing pendulum swing that represents both sides of the same coin is revealing the power that's waiting to be claimed in stasis. The pause, the temporary stillness that exists within the neutral territory between extremes. Before you rise, you must halt. Is it beginning to make sense now? When this first came to me, I started calling it a pain pyramid because it looked in my mind's eye like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with honesty as the foundational requirement of trust. And if we want to rise out of self-harming thoughts, words, and actions that keep us looping within unhealthy perspectives, perceptions, and projections, we need to be willing to take full and complete responsibility and accountability for self first. Responsibility and accountability that cannot exist if we can't find the courage to be honest with ourselves about who we are and how we co-create the world we experience. Honesty. I am the creator of my reality. You can dissociate and lie to yourself, but you cannot lie to the Most High, the creation energy that is your birthright and runs through you, which ultimately creates the reality you experience. You can only receive exactly who you be, regardless of who, what, or where you choose to externally place your faith. If you seek truth, acceptance, loyalty, and trust outside of you, it will never materialize if you cannot be honest about all of the ways you block your own expressions of it. According to David Hawkins, neutrality lives on the other side of courage. So if you want to access states of true acceptance, loyalty, and trust, you must find the courage to observe all of the ways you deceive yourself out of taking full responsibility and accountability over the quality of your response to everyone and everything that enters your life. Now, as our capacity for honesty increases, we then have to decide if we're going to punish ourselves for the times when we didn't have the tools, awareness, or physical ability to self-regulate, or if we're going to consciously cultivate the grace, compassion, and empathy to forgive ourselves for the things we cannot change and express gratitude for the clarity revealed during an honest self-assessment so different decisions can be made going forward. Acceptance. I am present. Failure to observe and accept what is appearing in the present moment with a neutral lens invites the potential to create feedback loops born out of the need to protect or defend a memory that keeps us bound to the past or projecting into the future. These loops can keep us sick, stuck, and stagnant inside of a false identity and out of clarity and connection with our highest creative expression. Acceptance is our greatest act of forgiveness and is the only exit I've found personally to eliminate betrayal. Judgment is necessary. We need to be able to actively and accurately judge a situation in order to hold ourselves within our integrity. Being judgmental is not. And it begins to reveal a lack of honesty and acceptance that can fester into self-betrayal if not observed and integrated. When we choose dishonesty through our lack of accountability and responsibility for our created reality, and then fail to accept what materializes based on those decisions, we choose to loop inside of familiar programs that tend to be rooted in codependency, which then places everyone and everything before ourselves. Once we begin to observe and acknowledge the aspects of self that requires compassionate care through the acceptance of what is before us, and then choose to cultivate the discipline and devotion required to create new outcomes, we can begin to cultivate the loyalty within that births the love, liberation, and peace we've been conditioned to seek externally. Loyalty. I am worthy. That's a big one. Cultivating loyalty to yourself is how you show others how to treat you. It is within this space that boundaries are created and maintained, standards are set, and trust begins to take shape. Loyalty is often a value and trait that we look for in others, feel betrayed when they don't meet our perceived expectations of it. And this usually happens while we also fail to address why we continuously break promises to ourselves. And I'm talking about the little things because at the end of the day, the little things are the big things. So some of the little things that we tend to overlook are bedtime. Are you able to go to bed when you say you want to go to bed? Can you put your phone down for hours at a time and allow yourself to focus on being present in the space that you're occupying? Can you choose to abstain from harmful substances and foods that do not nourish your body? Can you commit to moving your body every day? Do you check in with yourself before you look to meet the needs of others around you? Are you able to pause before you speak, especially when you're triggered? And if you're triggered, can you find the grace to not allow yourself to get pulled into an argument that does not serve your highest and greatest good? Are you able to keep commitments and show up on time? All of these little things that we tend to overlook day in and day out and see as minor transgressions actually represent a degree of self-betrayal. And this lack of self-loyalty that plagues society also underpins the frustrations that we have with our governments and systems and structures and businesses and work. Because ultimately, what we're doing is placing faith and trust in others to do for us what we are not willing to learn how to do for ourselves. And if we cannot be radically honest with ourselves to the extent that we can accept our role in the construction of our reality and make the individual adjustments required to not continually self-betray, trust cannot be secured. Trust. I am wise. You cannot have trust without trust. So if you choose to outsource trust before cultivating it within, it typically leads to others getting elevated into positions of trust that they have not earned, and other people typically get hurt. For example, idolatry is a symptom of betrayal because it represents a fundamental outsourcing of trust that we fail to cultivate for ourselves. And it takes many insidious shapes and forms within the constructs, people, and energies that either capture and hold our attention, or worse, we enter into a state of apathetic disengagement and then cry victim when we feel lied or betrayed to. This happens at the internal level every time we break a promise to ourselves and then ripples outward into the society and culture that our energy is in constant co-creation with. So just to recap quickly, honesty, I am the creator of my reality. Acceptance, I am present. Loyalty, I am worthy. Trust, I am wise. Each of these pillars will be explored individually and in depth, but I thought it was important to not just bring awareness to this concept of HALT that's been driving a lot of the conversations I've been having, but begin to weave together the importance of seeing them as a stacked practice. The quantum shift that is occurring within me as I choose to halt and observe everything and everyone that enters my life has been immeasurable and invaluable. My ability to detach from what I'm ingesting and create space to evaluate how something feels through a lens of honesty, acceptance, loyalty, and trust has revealed so many truths. It's showing me the work I've been avoiding, how I've been self-censoring, what values need strengthening and what beliefs need releasing, who can and cannot have access to me, the wisdom to know why, and how I choose to respond what is vying for my attention, and ultimately why I've been avoiding my gifts, remaining on the periphery of my mission, and how to now stand in and claim the fullness of it. As someone who is a self-professed, self-directed multitasker, I don't typically resonate or gravitate towards linear how-tos, checklists, and formulas, and instead find myself seeking out robust frameworks that give me the supportive structure needed to grow through particular seasons, but do it my way. So for example, when I started focusing on my fitness, it was important for me to learn how to use and maximize the effects of free weights, machines, and body weight, because that would allow me to cultivate a training practice that wasn't dependent on anything other than my commitment to show up for myself. HALT is no different. It is a practice that everyone will work differently, but the outcomes will remain the same if it's consistently applied. And that is reaching greater depths of self-accountability and responsibility through radical self-honesty, acceptance, loyalty, and trust. This framework has gifted me levels of accountability and responsibility that I am now able to consciously claim regardless of what shadows get illuminated. either within myself, against myself, or surrounding others who choose to enter my spaces. Ultimately, it dissolves the shame that tends to keep us playing small and stuck inside of imposter syndrome. This is the potent energy that I'm choosing to embody through all aspects of my life because I'm at peace with the fact that there's nothing that I need to protect or defend but my willingness and ability to halt at every twist and turn. It really is a complete acceptance of the path that I've walked to get to this now moment and all of the stories that may be conjured internally and externally about it. For me, this is what it looks like to transform pain into power and purpose and be invited, initiated, and activated into claiming and embodying the truth of who I am. If anything I've said today has resonated, whether it's a hell yeah or an oh no, please head over to grandrisingexperience.substack.com and join the comment section. I would love to hear from you. This is where we get to illuminate the beautiful messiness of what it means to be a soul walking through this world as a human being. As I said earlier, this is just the first episode in a series where we are going to go deeper into the digestion of the information, the processing of our environment, and what it looks like to work each step of HALT. This is a conversation I am so excited to get started, and I hope you join me. Thank you for being here. Until next time, I love you.